So, a huge warm welcome to this evening. I can't believe we've 45 participants on a nearly summer's evening. So, it's a testament to how wonderful Patricia is because we know she is so confident. She knows pathways inside out, upside down, and she is just fantastic as well for answering ad hoc questions. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand you straight to Patricia, who will kick this evening off. Patricia, thank you so much and wishing you all the best for this evening.
It's great to see so many people here, as Mariette has said, some of you whom I am familiar with and some new faces. So the new faces would lead me to believe that there are some new people here that are new to Pathways and new to, maybe you haven't signed up for Pathways yet, or you've signed up and you've gone, okay, what next? So what I'm hoping to do in this session is give a brief overview of Pathways, then move on and answer some questions. And then if we have time at the end, I can do some more demo on the website, and anything else can be followed up after the meeting if we need to, because I'm happy, along with Elizabeth and Mary, who are on the Pathways team with me, to troubleshoot questions offline via email, etc. at the end. And again, if you want to raise your virtual hand at any point to stop me, please do. Okay, so Pathways. First off, can I ask how many of you have not looked at Pathways yet? Is there anybody here that's not looked at Pathways yet? That is a brand new Toasty. Okay, one. I'll have a look at my second page. There's a few. So I'm seeing maybe 2 or 3 on the comments here as well. Okay. So I'm going to take it from the start, and I'm going to share my screen here now, and we'll hope and pray that this works. So once you have signed up for Toastmasters and you have a login, you log into the website. So I've put my password and everything in here just to get me in for demo purposes. And you will see welcome and your name. Okay. And I always come to my home then. Okay. And it will bring you to the 3 most important tabs on the whole of the Toastmasters International website, I feel. You have Basecamp, which is where your path will live when you purchase it. You have the Learning Hub that has lots of education resources. And then you have the Achievements tab, which is the place that you go sometimes when you need inspiration and maybe you're stuck in a rush and you don't know what to talk about, or you feel that, oh, I've gone as far as I can go. Then you look at your achievements and you realize all that you have achieved, and hopefully it will spur you on to give that next speech or complete that next level, etc. So for the purposes of those that are new, I'm going to show you how to pick a path briefly. So you will click on the Learning Hub, which is the second tab here. And you will see here it says choose a path, view the navigator, or go to Basecamp. So when you choose a path, you can do this a couple of ways. Okay, first of all, you select your language that you want your path in. And I'll just do this quickly to get on to the next section. And then it says, how would you like to select your learning path? So you can view all options. So this shows you the 6 paths you can purchase, and it gives you a couple of sentences on each of them to see if that particular path meets the learning goals that you have. Or you can take an assessment. Now I'll click into this briefly because there's a lot of questions that I won't get a chance to click through on all of them, but it will ask you certain questions. So for example, select 3 topics that you were interested in learning about. So we'll just say, for argument's sake, public speaking, project planning, and leadership, and next. So you'll click through all these different questions that will ask you what you're interested in, and then it will suggest a path for you. Okay, I won't click through them all there because there's a good few questions and it would take up too much time. But it will say at the end, okay, it looks like maybe engaging humor is the path for you based upon what you've suggested. And you don't have to go with that path, but it's a nice way if you are stuck to see maybe what's out there and what suits your learning needs. In view all path options, you will get, as I've said, an example of the path and a little blurb on it. And then when you click into it, it'll give you slightly more down here. Learn more about the dynamic leadership path, for example, and it will give you a little bit more. As you will see here, it says recommended presentation mastery. And I agree with that. I think if you are new to Toastmasters, if you are new to public speaking, presentation mastery gives you a very well-rounded example of different projects and different components of public speaking. And it's a great foundation path to do. The other ones, as you will see, are gauged towards leadership or towards public speaking. And I definitely, as somebody, when I joined Toastmasters, wanted to do more about public speaking. Presentation mastery was definitely the best path for me. I've subsequently taken on leadership roles and have done some of the paths about leadership, but definitely for me at the start, when I wasn't, all I was about was coming in here and gaining confidence in public speaking, presentation mastery was the path for me. So when you select your path, we'll come back here and we'll go back to my home again. You will then go to Basecamp. And Basecamp is where everything is, your program and all the materials that you will need. Okay. And sometimes when you go to open this, especially this time of the evening, it's just a little bit slow. So as you will see here, I have a couple of different paths open. And some of you that are in Toastmasters for a while may be in a similar position. So some of us are in multiple clubs, and what we've done is we've used a pathway for each club. Or during COVID, we got a free path because as a gift from Toastmasters International, because a lot of us were spending a lot of time visiting online clubs and doing speeches, etc. So we have different things open in our Basecamp. As you will see here, I have a couple of different paths open, and that is because originally there was 11 paths. So when Pathways was rolled out first, there was 10, then they introduced engaging humor, and then there was 11. And over the last couple of years, they have refined those paths down to the ones that are now available to purchase. That doesn't mean, though, that if, like me, you have the effective coaching, the leadership development, and the strategic relationships open, that you can't finish them. Some of these I've only just barely started, so I will be completing them to level 5 to the end. I will still get credit for them, and my club, through the Distinguished Club Programme, will still get credit for the levels that I complete. It just means that any of you who haven't purchased a path, or anybody that wants to purchase a second or subsequent path, will not be able to purchase those that have been discontinued for new purchase. Okay, so I'm going to just stop sharing for a second because I want to share another screen with you. These are the paths that are currently available for new purchase. Okay, and these are the 6 paths. And I will pop this graphic in the chat because I think it is something that even myself, and I've been engaging with Pathways for a good few years now, still come back to. And it's one that I give any new Toastmaster or anybody looking to pick a path. It shows the 6 paths that are still available to purchase. So dynamic leadership, engaging humor, motivational strategies, persuasive influence, presentation mastery, and visionary communication. And then it benchmarks these against 5 core competencies down the side here. So public speaking, interpersonal communication, strategic leadership, management, and confidence. And as you will see, confidence is there in all 6 of those, because essentially that is what Toastmasters is about. Irrespective of what path you're doing, it's about building that confidence in public speaking. So this is just a nice graphic, I think, to give you a little snapshot of what each path is about and the core competencies. As I said, some people come to Toastmasters, they just want to learn how to speak proficiently in public. They want to build confidence. Other people may be experienced in public speaking through their job, but they want to develop different skills. And that's where this matrix really comes in useful for people, because they can say, okay, I speak, but people say that there's not a lot of humor maybe in what I say. So I want to really do the engaging humor path to learn how to put that little bit of humor into my communication, so that when I give my presentations at work, for example, I can inject that little bit of humor to make it more interesting, etc. So again, I'll pop this in the chat at the end so that actually I can do it now while I'm talking. And it's just a good thing to come and revisit when you want to have a look and see what to do next or where to start. Okay, paste in there now. So I'm just having a look at the chat there just to see if there's any questions at this part. point. So I think, Bridget, you're talking about being a base camp manager. I'll come back to that shortly, just because that, I take it the first path is still free. Yes, it's included with your membership fee. I know there was talk previously about a new member joining fee. There used to be a new member joining fee. I think there was talk about them discontinuing that and then paying for your path. But as far as I know, the first path is still free. It just showed $20 there on my one because I have got my first free path. So any path I buy now will be $20. But for the learning that you get, I think, buying that subsequent path, if you're somebody that's working their way through their first path, it's well worth it. Okay. So I'll come back to the base camp question there shortly, Bridget. Okay. Oh yes, it's actually listed as costing 20, but it is going to buy 20 for new members. Exactly, yeah. So the new members get it discounted. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here again now, and I'm going to talk you through the different pathway levels, because I think it's important that we look at this. Now, for new members, all you will see is the new interface. So there was a new interface introduced in January, and those 6 paths that remain have the new interface. If you, like me, are working on one of the older paths, you will see the older interface. So just to be aware of that for those of you that have been engaging with Pathways for a while. But I'm going to click here on Motivational Strategies, because this is one of the paths that's remaining, and it'll be a good example of how the new interface looks, because I'm going to assume that a lot of people will choose Presentation Mastery as their first path, so it will have this interface. Okay, so when you log on, again, it just takes a second, so I think patience is the key with this. I'm not a very patient person, so sometimes when I see the page taking a while to load, I get frustrated, but don't. So you will see it'll give you the name of your path. And what's nice about this is it will give you your progress. So every time you do something and submit something, that will increase. So it's just nice to see where you're at. And you will see your 5 levels listed down the side. So when you click on Overview, it should list the 5 levels for you. Now, each path has 5 levels, and you must complete the 5 levels to get your Pathways award. Okay? And yes, levels 1 and part of level 2 are the same across every path, but that doesn't mean that that's a backward step. I don't want, and I often say this, I don't want people thinking that it's like snakes and ladders, that, you take a couple of steps forward and then you go back because you're starting a new path. You're not, because the learning that you have in the first path will greatly inform how you tackle a second path. So if you're there now and you're on level 4, we'll say, of the first path, and you're thinking, okay, I need to purchase the second path, but I'm going back to level 1 again. Don't see it as going back to level 1, because that new path has a whole lot of new learning, and you are a different person than when you did the first level 1, maybe 2 years ago when you first joined. So just bear that in mind. So you will see level 1. And we refer to each of these, so the icebreaker, the writing a speech with purpose, etc., as projects. And why we're referring to them as projects is because, yes, for some of them, you do a speech and you get an evaluation. But for some of these projects, there's more than one thing you need to do. And sometimes you might need to do a bit more prep work, or you may need to give 2 speeches, a before, then do something, and then give an after speech to reflect on it. So we call them projects. So beware that not so much in level 1 and 2, but from level 3, 4, and 5, there may be several components to a project before you can get credit for it. So with the first 3 speeches that you will do will be the icebreaker, writing a speech with purpose, and introduction to vocal variety. Then evaluation and feedback has 3 components to it. So you must give a speech, get an evaluation on it, give preferably that speech again, bringing that feedback into play if you so wish, and then deliver an evaluation. But you must get an evaluation of your evaluation, which I think a lot of people forget. So by the 4th project, essentially here, you will be evaluating another Toastmaster. And I think it is important that you do get evaluated on that first evaluation, because it's your first time doing it. And it is a skill that you develop over time. So it's excellent to hear somebody else's viewpoint on how you have evaluated. And then level 2. So level 2 will either have understand your communication style or understand your leadership style. And it will always have the introduction to Toastmasters mentoring project as well. Okay. And then the middle one here is active listening. That's different in some paths, depending on which path you pick. But again, as I always mention in my Pathways talks, active listening is an excellent project to do. And you can do this project when you are a topics master. Because topics is all about active listening on the part of the topics master. And how you approach this topic or this project is you get an evaluator for when you're topics master. They're not evaluating the topic responses, they're evaluating you as topics master and how you listen. So being topics master isn't about me asking Mairead a question, Mairead answering the question, me moving on to Elizabeth and asking Elizabeth a question. It's about me interacting with Mairead as to what she said. It doesn't need to be very long. It just needs to say, okay, Mairead, I asked you, where your favorite place that you ever went to was on holidays. You said that was Rome. I was there twice and it rained for the week when I was there. You were lucky that it was, the sun was shining when you were there, etc. like that. But it just shows that you were engaging with her and that you've active listening. And that is that project. So sometimes people are saying, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what speech to write. This active listening project is in level 2, but it is also an optional in level 3. So it's a good project to pick because you're ticking a project off, but you are getting a lot of learning from it, and you don't need to write a speech. Because I know sometimes we get burnout sometimes thinking about different speeches and things to write about, and sometimes I get writer's block for a while, and that's when I go to start doing roles or topics master just to keep speaking, but just to give my creativity a little bit of a rest from speech writing, because it can be difficult sometimes to think of topics. And then we move to the more advanced paths, which are level 3, 4, and 5. Now I won't go into detail here in these tonight because there isn't time. But in these, you will always have one mandatory, and then there are electives. And the beauty about the elective projects, and I'm just going to click into the electives here, is in level 3, you pick 2. But there is a massive selection to pick from, as you can see. And this is why I always say to people, there is always something to talk about. And whatever you want to speak about, you can fit it into one of the optionals. And sometimes people look at me strangely when I say that, and they go, well, what I want to talk about doesn't fit into any of the optionals in level 3, 4, or 5. And I often say, take a step back, look at it, turn it on its head, see how you can interpret it. Because yes, I'm an advocate that if it says connect with storytelling, for example, you need to be telling a story. Okay? But it's how you interpret the guidelines of the project. So again, somebody might want to focus on the positive, for example. That could cover a wide variety of topics. For example, I'm reading a book at the moment that was actually recommended to me by another Toastmaster. It's about communication and about leadership. For me, that's something that's very positive. So one of my plans is to do this project and to do a book review on that book, because for me, that's focusing on the positive. It's giving a positive message, and it's doing something positive for me. So that's how I look at that. Somebody else might have an inspirational story that they want to tell. So it's about looking at these maybe a little bit differently and taking a step back from them. So you can see there are plenty to pick from, and what you do here is you pick 2 and you bring them over, and then they come into your guide over here. Okay, but I don't want to go into too much detail on levels 3, 4, and 5 at the moment. I will specifically if people have questions on those. So you work through the levels, and then when you get to level 5, you put your path through for completion, and you get a nice little certificate to demonstrate your effort. But again, there's a lot of materials in here. So Icebreaker, for example, when you click in, each project will have information for you to engage with. So if you see down the left-hand side here, it'll give you introduction and assignment, and each of these are hyperlinked. So if you want to go back and find something quickly, it's quite easy just to follow these hyperlinks down here and get what you're looking for. But I strongly, strongly recommend, if you are new to Pathways or you are new to public speaking, engage with this material, because there is so much learning in there. And even though I have done several paths now, and I will admit, sometimes I have a speech idea, I look at what level I'm on and I write the speech. That's fine too. But when I do have time, I go back and I go through the material, and I am learning so much from it, because there's things you have forgotten, or you look at something with new eyes and a new perspective. So you engage with it. And yes, it is recommended, and I'm a strong advocate for this when you're starting out on your first path, do your levels sequentially. You can only get credit for level 2 after you have done level 1 anyway. So when you're starting out here, please start at level 1 and work your way down the levels, because each level builds on the previous one. So if you're new to Toastmasters and you're new to public speaking and you do your icebreaker, the next logical solution there is to do the vocal variety and the body language. If you're jumping to something in level 3 after giving 1 or 2 speeches, you're not going to get the learning that is in the preceding projects. So just bear that in mind. People that have been in Toastmasters for a while, yes, we do jump around, because I suppose, we have done a couple of paths and have built up the necessary skills, hopefully, to be able to move around. But I would strongly recommend that you do level 1 in its entirety, move on to level 2, etc. I won't stop there because I see there's some questions coming in, and I'll
yes, you have a few questions.
Is there a structure of the projects required for each level, as we could see previously? You will, I think, if I'm interpreting this right, Therese, you will get an objective of a speech. The majority of the time, it's very broad, which is what's good about Toastmasters, in that, yes, it will say, okay, vocal variety, you need to demonstrate vocal variety, you need to demonstrate body language. Okay, it says what it does on the tin. Another project, it might just, so for example, the evaluation and feedback there in level 1, it will say, deliver a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and then implement that in the second speech. So that's the brief, really. But when you engage and you drill down into the project, it will give you lots of tips on delivering a speech, structuring a speech, that it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But again, that's for every speech. It has to have maybe 2 or 3 salient points that you develop, and that a speech doesn't have to be everything. And that's the beauty, I think, of Pathways, is, remember, if there's a topic that you like, or that might lend itself to a couple of speeches, use those different projects for part 1, part 2, part 3, rather than trying to put everything into one speech and maybe losing the meaning of it. I've seen that happen to people. They might have 6 different points in a speech, and you're kind of thinking, okay, they've run out of time, they're rushing towards the end. I would often say then, in an evaluation, you can do this in a second speech and you will get credit for a second project. So I think that's just, but as of set structures, no, Trey, it's not really just basically it gives you a small little synopsis on what you need to do, and you take it from there. Can you mark something off that you've done in the past? If you haven't got credit for it before, yes, but also you need to be evaluated. Now, again, you don't have to upload an evaluation to Basecamp to get credit for the project. They rely on everyone's moral compass, that I will say, okay, I have done my icebreaker and I've received an evaluation, that I'm not just logging in tonight, taking you through the icebreaker project and ticking it off and saying I have it done. So I would say best practice, and for the integrity of the program, if you've done something and you've been evaluated for it, yes. And provided you haven't gotten credit previously. I know I've had this discussion before with Toastmasters that may have done many speaking projects before and now want to transfer those to Pathways. Again, aka the competent communication, which was there before. No, you can't, because you've got credit for that already. So again, I'd say, Martin, if you've had an evaluation for something and you haven't logged it, by all means. But I would say you need to have been evaluated by a Toastmaster. just for the integrity of the project. Patricia, could you go through evaluation in level 1 again? I can, John. So I'll just share my screen here. So in level 1, apologies there now, is the 4th project here is evaluation and feedback. So in this project, you deliver a speech and it's very open-ended. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. The aim of this is that you get an evaluation and that you can implement the suggestions of your evaluator and give the speech again. And the 3rd component of this then is that you evaluate another Toastmaster at a meeting, but then there is an evaluation sheet. So realistically, if you have 3 speeches at a meeting and you have somebody doing the evaluation portion of this project, you will need another evaluator to evaluate the person giving that evaluation. And that's the only time really that the evaluator gets evaluated other than a general evaluation at the end. But I would recommend that you do appoint an evaluator to evaluate, Don, if you were giving that project, just to get the feedback on it. Is that okay, John? I hope that answers that question. And again, look, all evaluation is subjective. So you can say, okay, I don't really agree with what my evaluator said. And you can maybe, but I would take on board some of what your evaluator says, because usually all evaluations are given in good faith and from somebody that is experienced and has the best interests of the speaker at heart about their development.
Thanks for that, Patricia. Much appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree with that. If you add by saying that you haven't looked at educational materials for a project, I would say yes, engage with the educational materials, because there's a lot to learn there. Okay, Andrew, what is the suggested speed of progress through levels? Okay, again, Pathways is a self-paced program. I will see some people join and they will be extremely enthusiastic and they will fly through their first 3 projects. And that's great. But then they may not have done any roles. So while I will never discourage a new member from speaking, because that, again, that's why we're all here, I think sometimes you need to put the brakes on when it comes to giving lots and lots of speeches, because what you can happen then is you can have somebody that's done level 1 and level 2 quite quickly. And I would question then, if you're giving a speech every second week, how much time have you got to engage with the materials, number 1. And number 2, then you're not probably going to be able to do other roles. So, I mean, I remember I was at a club meeting one time and somebody was there 4 years and they had never actually been a Toastmaster. And I think they had never done grammarian or something like that, because they were doing speeches and they were stuck doing, to them, it was like, I'll do an evaluation and I'll do that, or I'll do topics master. You will get people, I know people that they're 4 years and they might be on level 3. I know people, they're 4 years in Toastmasters and they have 4 paths done. Again, it all depends on how much time you give it, how much time you can give it, because again, I often say this, Toastmasters, I would say, plays an important role in my life, but there are some times in my life where other things need to take priority. And, you know, you have to go, okay, I need to take my foot off the pedal here for a while and tend to other stuff. So never feel discouraged if you think, okay, Mary here is on level 5 and she's here as long as me. I joined the same day as her and I'm on level 2, because everybody has a different reason to be here. Everybody has a different journey. So I would say set yourself a goal at the start of every Toastmasters year and try and meet that goal. Some people that would be to complete a path. Some people it would be to complete 2 levels, but the goal is your personal goal. So at the start of each year, I would always set myself, okay, this is my target, and I would work towards that. So again, there'll be times in your life, Andrew, where you can fly through stuff and you can get a lot of time to give to Toastmasters and speech writing and engaging with the materials. And then there will be time where you'll be saying to the VP, okay, look, I'm time poor this week, but I can do a role at a meeting. I can do maybe an evaluation, because a lot of that involves doing the work on the night, or I can be grammarian, etc. So I wouldn't ever tell somebody they have to have X done by such a time, because I think it's important to look at it for yourself and what you want to achieve. I mean seeing the whole path plan and what the projects involve. Yeah. So to do that, Trace, you need to, I'll just share my screen here now for that. Again, I think if I'm reading what you're asking me correctly, you can open up each one of these here and read what's on the left-hand side for each project. Opening a project doesn't mean that there's a clock ticking, that because I've opened it today, I have to have it done within a month. It's not like that. So I would recommend that people take a look at what's involved. So you will go through and it will, in each project, you will come into introduction and assignment and it will tell you what's involved. So you will see it like this and your assignment. So this is what I was saying earlier about the purpose. So I'm just going to, I just need to move my screen out of the way. Your purpose of this project is introduce yourself to the club and learn the basic structure of a public speech. So it's telling you what the purpose is and what the overview is. And each project has that. So if you want a kind of global view, I would click into those different projects and look at the purpose and the overview, and it gives you, and it gets your mind thinking about what's coming next. I know from talking to other Toastmasters, I do feel that I'm always thinking about potential speech topics going through my head, and I recommend that anybody, whether you're a new Toastmaster or a seasoned Toastmaster, either keep a notebook, whether it's an old style pen and pad note paper or the trusty notes on the iPhone, and just jot things down, things that come into your head, a quote that you might hear, somebody mentions something at work, I jot that down. Now, it could take 3 years before I ever write a speech in it, but it just means that there's ideas there formulating in your head, and I think that makes the speech writing part of it easier, because you're ruminating a lot on topics. So if your VP says, okay, Elizabeth, can you give a speech at the next meeting? You're not scrambling going, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? Because hopefully you've got something stored in the back of your head that you've been kind of putting on the back burner that you can develop in time to give a speech. So I hope that's what you're asking, Trace. How many speeches are needed for level 1 in total? Okay, so you need the icebreaker, the writing a speech with purpose, the vocal variety and body language, and then 2 speeches in the evaluation and feedback. So 4 projects and 5 speeches in total. Okay, and that, you know, again, that goes back to Andrew's question. Is that doable in a year? It is, if you have speaking slots. But again, it's about getting that balance. I don't believe people should be speaking at every meeting, because again, you know, you're not getting a chance to do the roles. However, in some clubs, if membership is low and people are looking for speeches, well, then it's better to fill the speaking slots than to have nobody to speak. So again, if you're in a club like that, you may get more chances to speak. Conversely, if you're in a club that has quite a high membership, you're almost grappling to get a speaking slot. So you may not have a chance to do 5 speeches in a year, perhaps. But again, you can do a speech in another club if you so wish. And that's the beauty of Toastmasters, is we can visit other clubs and get the value of evaluations from other members elsewhere. How long do you have to wait to do an icebreaker? I would say get in there as quick as you can when you join. The club that I'm a member of, I was VPE last year, I'm president this year. We would very much be saying to somebody, okay, you've joined tonight, we have a meeting in another 2 weeks. Why don't you take the bull by the horns and prepare an icebreaker speech? And I would say if somebody joined tonight, I wouldn't be saying, okay, June for your first icebreaker. I would be trying to get somebody in if I had a speech before the end of April or at the start of May, because you want people to see what they have invested in and to start that learning, rather than, okay, that's great, you know, Linda's joined, we'll get Linda to do lots of roles, but then you haven't given a speech. So if you were afraid coming in to stand up and give that speech, the more you delay doing it, the more fearful you're probably going to get. So it's better just to face the fear and do it. We sometimes have guests that come and they say, right, okay, I'm going to join, put me down in 2 weeks, I'll be paying my membership fee tomorrow. And we would say fine, and obviously once they've paid their membership fee, then we'd say you're on the programme. If they didn't, we wouldn't. But sometimes you'll have guests that are really enthusiastic like that. And I will find, and I don't know, Linda, are you on the start of your journey? Are you only thinking about icebreaker, etc.? But when I joined Toastmasters first, I avoided anything that scared me. I avoided anything that I felt was outside my comfort zone. And I know it's a cliche, but I think you do find once you start getting into it, you actually enjoy being outside your comfort zone a little bit, because that is where the learning is. So I would say to anybody, if you join, sign up straight away for either the next meeting or the one after that. And if your VP isn't forthcoming in signing you up, go up to them and say, look, I've joined and I want to speak. Sometimes members have to be more, sometimes you kind of have to offer. In some clubs, the VP mightn't always, because they don't know you, they mightn't necessarily volunteer you to do it because you're new, but definitely just face the fear and do it. And once you do that first icebreaker, I guarantee you, you will want to sign up for your second speech, because you're riding on the adrenaline of it and the enthusiasm and the response that you get from your club members.
Great, thank you. I just wasn't sure whether you had to wait to be invited, so thank you for that.
No, I would say get in there and just, I definitely say from my experience, both, just as a regular member and as VP, sometimes you kind of think, oh, maybe that person just wants to settle in a little bit more, they seem nervous, and you mightn't ask them. But if you're not asked, just put your hand up and say you'll do it.
Yes.
I think that's the best way to do it, Linda. Okay, so for example, after level 1 and 2 in a certain pathway, can one switch to another pathway? You can, but you'd have to buy the other pathway, is the short answer to that one. But realistically, like, you're not going to get credit. So for example, if you're doing presentation mastery level 1 and level 2, and then you had, we'll say, engaging humor open, you're not going to get credit for a level 3 in engaging humor if you've level 1 and 2 in presentation mastery done. You have, like, you'd have to have level 1 and level 2 done in the engaging humor as well. So I would say stick with your path after level 1 and level 2, especially if it's your first path. Work through it to the end and then think about the second path. Yeah, at our last meeting, we had 3 icebreakers. 2 were brand new and 1 had been a member for a while. Exactly. And on icebreakers, again, maybe you're on your third path and you're thinking, why am I doing an icebreaker again? Should the club know everything about me? These people are my friends. I've known them for 5 years, etc. There's always something people won't know about you, essentially, that you can talk about. Or what I've done when I've done subsequent icebreakers is I have spoken about my journey. And I hate using the journey word, but I've spoken about, how nervous I was when I did the first icebreaker, the second one. Now this is where I'm at, and this is what I've achieved since I last did my icebreaker. Okay. Again, if you were doing engaging humor, for example, I would expect that your icebreaker would need to be on the more humorous side, maybe, than your first one might have been. It might have been serious. And you can flip it, surprise people, talk about a side of you that maybe your fellow Toastmaster colleagues don't know about, and keep it interesting. And just while I'm on that, before I move on to the next question, it leads to a question that people often ask, is that, for example, the mentoring project in level 2. Again, you have to do that in every path, like certain other projects. There's nothing stopping you from, we'll say, doing that project in the second path, using the same speech, but changing aspects of it. There's nothing to say you have to do a completely new speech, but it does have to be slightly different. You know what I mean? You can't just give, like, if I have 4 paths open, I can't just give the mentoring speech and then go, okay, that's great, tick, tick, tick 4 times across and say it's done. But I have in the past, I suppose you could say, repurposed a speech and put a different slant on it, or took on board something an evaluation might have said. I remember one time I gave a speech and I told a story in the middle of it, and the evaluator said, okay, the next time you do this speech, I want the story at the start. So I gave the speech the next time I was doing that project, and that was quite a specific project. And it was the same content, but I repurposed how I delivered it. And again, you could give your icebreaker speech, and the next speech could just be the follow on from that, or you could be just changing something in the icebreaker speech and getting credit the next time you do it, but you have to change aspects of it. You can't be giving the same speech all the time and getting credit for it, but there's a lot to work with. So when you have content, and if you have something that you're really interested in, you can develop it and get more mileage from it, essentially. Let me have a look. There was confusion as to which system to use, Pathways or Easy Speak. Okay, so Pathways is the Toastmasters International Educational Program. Easy Speak is a tool that was developed by a Toastmaster for agenda creation. Okay, so realistically, the first club I joined never used Easy Speak. They just created an agenda on Word, and it was passed around every week and printed off and put on seats before the meeting. During COVID, when I started visiting online clubs, I had to get an Easy Speak account. Easy Speak helps in two ways if it's used correctly. It helps to generate an agenda, and it does help clubs to see who's coming to the meeting. But in order for that to happen, people have to say they're coming to the meeting. It can be a good tracker for where you are on Pathways, provided a member isn't in multiple clubs. So for example, I am in multiple clubs. Now, the first club I joined, I'm not in anymore. But all the speeches that I've done there is no record of them on Easy Speak. I'm also a member of a club in the States. They use a different Easy Speak platform, so there's huge gaps in mine. So if you're using Easy Speak as a tracker for where people are at, it may not be the most accurate if somebody was in a club that didn't use Easy Speak or are in multiple clubs and they're not recording them as is. So I would say from a tracking point of view, you need to use Pathways, but Easy Speak is great in terms of meeting management. And it is a very easy way to create an agenda because, you know, you select the information and you're not battling Word trying to get tables where you make one move and everything goes out of sync, etc. So Pathways is the only Toastmasters educational program, but Easy Speak is the agenda management and meeting management side of it. And it's also great to look and see when other meetings are on if you want to visit in person or online, because they'll have the meeting links and the meeting location there as well. Okay. Easy Speak is not official. Mentorship is important. Yeah, again, mentorship is important. And when you have done level 2, there is a mentorship sub-project that has 3 different speeches in it and 3 different projects in it that you can do. You get credit for it, but it doesn't go towards official Toastmasters credit. You get a certificate, but it doesn't go towards distinguished club program points, etc. Pathways provides a learning process. I don't know much about Easy Speak. Okay. How long do you have to talk for an icebreaker? 4 to 6 minutes, as Sue said. And you know, Michelle, you would be surprised. 4 to 6 minutes sounded a hell of a long time to me when I was new to Toastmasters. I thought that I would probably collapse when I was standing there. And I often say this to people. I had my speech printed out, you know, font that I could read. I actually tore the page because my hands were sweating so much. And I was so nervous. My hands were shaking that I actually literally disintegrated the paper because I was that stressed. And that's okay. And I have no shame in saying that, or that saying to somebody, I'm not going to say to somebody doing their icebreaker is really easy because it's only 4 to 6 minutes. It's tough, but you will realize that when you're there, that time, it doesn't pass as slowly as you think. But I would say when you are preparing for your icebreaker, I would prepare a little over the 6 minutes, because in reality, when you start speaking, when we're nervous or when we're talking, we tend to talk faster. I do anyway, because I have a fast accent by nature. So preparing 4 to 6 minutes, sometimes if you say, well, I have 5 minutes prepared, in reality, when you start talking, that could be 3. So part of the skill is knowing how much you need to prepare for the pace of your speech and what you need to do. And as you get into delivering speeches, you become more adept at being able to, in your head, know what to leave out and what to keep in if you're running short on time. So 4 to 6 minutes, and talk about anything, absolutely anything, for the icebreaker. And they are lovely speeches. They really are really, really lovely speeches, because you really get to know aspects of a member that you mightn't have known before. And Carol, hi Carol, it's good to see you again. Yeah, it would be helpful if there was a leaflet that outlined the guidelines when you're new to Toastmasters. And I think by that you mean maybe, you know, what each role is. And you know, Toastmasters have done that, you know, what the roles are, what you need to do, what's expected of you. I think that they are available. And Carol, I can send you ones that I've done before. Easy Speak records who has done your evaluations. It does Cliff, which is good. And again, to any VPEs out there, it's wise not to have the same person evaluating the same member all the time. And Easy Speak helps with that. If you can kind of, you know, get a cross section of evaluations, that's helpful. Okay. Yes, and free Toast, which I've never used, but I do believe that it's as good as Easy Speak. I'm a long time member. When I started my pathway on level 3, not realizing they had to be done in sequence. And I haven't. I was trying to record my achievements, but it remains grey. You do. So yeah, you can put through a speech, you know, you can put through a project when it's done. So when you have the icebreaker done, you bring it down to completion, but you will not, you don't get credit for individual projects per se. You need to get the level completed before you get the level 1 certificate, and then it will let you put through the level 2 certificate. So if you have part of level 3 done, but you have no level 2 done, you will not get credit until you have the 3 projects done in level 3 or in level 2. Apologies. So I'd say, Annabelle, go back and see where the gaps are, and then once you fill those in level 1, you know, you should be able to, you should be on track then to fill them in level 2 and level 3. Yeah, and the navigator, I'll show you here the navigator actually, now that you mention it, Sue. Here, when you come into, sorry, my icons are right on the piece that I need to click on. When you log into Pathways first, I'll go back actually to the home page here. It will show you the navigator, so, which Sue was talking about, and that actually is very helpful for new members and for the rest of us as well, to be as a reminder from time to time. So if when you go in here into my home, and I think it's in the Learning Hub, isn't it? Yes, it is. And you go into view the navigator, and it just gives you a guide to Toastmasters and Pathways. It gives you a link to the Toastmasters magazine, which is excellent. You get the Toastmasters magazine. If you sign up to receive emails from Toastmasters International, you should be receiving links to the Toastmasters magazine. There's fantastic content in that. There's tips on pathways, there's tips on giving speeches, there's testimonials from members, etc. And it's really good to engage with as well. And just something that you can, I often just have it on my desktop and I click into it on my coffee break at work. If I decide to have a cup of coffee at my desk, I just open it up and have a look. How many times should you attend before becoming a member, Carol? I've heard clubs say before that, you know, guests should come maybe 3 times and then sign up, because every meeting is different. So for example, you could come to a meeting some night and it's the open night. And the open night is very different to a regular meeting. Or sometimes somebody comes and it's a competition night. So what they experience on a contest night would be very different to a regular meeting. So I would say come maybe 2-3 times and before you commit. Now, some people are very adamant that they want to join because maybe they've had friends that join, they've heard about it, they've done research online, etc. But if you're brand new to it, come to a couple of meetings, get a feel for it and talk to people. Don't just come to the meeting, watch what's going on and not engage with people, because sometimes it's hard to understand, you know, the formalities and the language and, you know, things like sergeant at arms or general evaluator. So chat to people. And a club should really, if they see a new person coming in, you know, bring the person in and sit them down next to an experienced member who's the kind of person that will chat to them. So pick out those people that are chatty in the club and that are good ambassadors for the club, and make sure that they're linked in with the guests, because that's a good bit of PR as well for the new guests. Okay. Connie, I joined last year before Basecamp was changed. I have since taken a 6-month break and plan to return. No, okay, so if once you're a paid up member, I think Emer was answering that there, yeah, you will have access, but the interface, depending on whether you have the old one of the paths that was discontinued or whether you have one of the newer paths, the interfaces will be slightly different. So if you purchased a path that has since been discontinued for new purchase, keep going with it, Connie, because you will get credit for it. But if you were to buy a subsequent path that was one of the ones that's continuing, the interface will look different, like Emer said there. I would prefer to have the newer interface. Connie, can I ask, do you know what path you bought? And then we'll know if it's the new or the old one. Okay, well, what I can do is I'll share my email address, and if you want to check that out when you rejoin, we can troubleshoot that. But again, you know, there are differences again, and the beauty of the new interface is that it is mobile phone friendly. So again, if you need to check something on the go, or you are somebody that is very quick at doing something on your mobile phone, it is much better for those kind of people. Now, I know I answered a lot of questions there. I just want to come back into Basecamp because I know we're going to be caught a little bit for time, but what I want to show you is I'm going to go back into Basecamp because it's important that we know where the evaluation resources are. And this is another thing. We have become very good at giving an oral evaluation in the club. So when you're called on to evaluate a member, you stand up, you give the evaluation. And some people, and I often do it, I make notes in my notepad. But really, if you do that, you then need to either at the end of the meeting or when you go home, fill out the formal evaluation sheet and give that to the member. Because that's a great record for them. And that's where the learning is. If they're just getting an oral evaluation at the meeting, they're not going to retain everything that you've said. And it's great to be able to go back and say, okay, God, I've grown a lot since I got that last evaluation for this project, etc. So I just want to show you resources tab. So when you come into Basecamp, which is where you'll see your paths, you see resources here, okay? And here is where you can download the evaluation resources. So they're all here and they will filter as you come down. So you just find which one you want. So for example, the Connect with Storytelling is here. This first little button, which is the downward arrow, will download that. So I'll just click on that there now, and I can open that to you in a moment. This one allows you then to share the evaluation with a member. So for example, but you have to be in the same club as the member. So for example, if I'm in the same club as Mairead, I can select, and I select Powder Mills here because that's my home club. And if Mairead was here, so I would select Mairead's name, and I'll select, what I'll do here is I'll select Nicholas O'Neill because he knows that I use his name a lot when I'm doing demos for this. If he gets a random evaluation sheet for me, he knows what it is. So I select Nick, for example, and I click share. And then that resource has been shared with him. So it's sending him the evaluation sheet for my speech, and he will fill that out. And there'll be a share button at the other side, and that will come back to me. Now, there has been some glitches with that as the new interface comes in. So I would always, if I was sending an evaluation resource to somebody like this, where there's no paper involved, I would be just sending them an email saying, look, Mairead, I've sent you an evaluation resource there, check that out. And you should get an email to say that you received it. And this little bell up here next to your name will tell you where there is, if somebody has sent you something as well. But again, you can do it in the traditional way. And I think I have to stop sharing to open up that evaluation resource and share it with you. And again, these are editable PDFs, which is excellent, which means that if you are at a meeting online, you can type into this. Let me share this with you. So here we go. So this is so all evaluation sheets will look like this. They will have the name of the project, and then you fill in the mentor's name, and it will give the purpose statement, the notes for the evaluator, and general comments. So ideally, every speaker should receive one of these after they speak. At the meeting, great, if you want to fill it out by hand at a meeting, or definitely follow up the next day if you prefer to type it up, which a lot of us now do because we live in that kind of a world, to type up and send to the evaluator. As I said at the start, you don't need to upload an evaluation to get credit, but I think it is important to keep them all together and just to go back. It's nice to go back and see how far you've progressed. Okay, let me just see. I saw something else. The bit that you can see on the screen will all be available to you. It is less cluttered. It is definitely, I think it's the sequence now, I think in the new interface, Connie, is a lot more streamlined. And if you're somebody like me that has a very kind of, you know, step-by-step way of processing things, I think it's a lot better. Let me come back in here for a moment, and I just want to show you a few more things because I know we started late, so I don't mind going 5 minutes over my rate if that's okay with you, just to tidy up a few things. So up here you will see the resources, so that's where the evaluations are, and my documents. Now this is like a Dropbox. You don't need to put anything in here, but it's a great place to upload your speeches if you want to keep them all in one place. I know I keep mine on Google Drive, but that's just because I'm used to using that. But again, you can just upload a file here, drag it in, and it will keep all your speeches, etc. there. The achievements tab here, you will see then what your achievements are. So this will show the paths and the levels that I have done. So all the ones that are colored here are what I've achieved. The ones in gray, we say, are the level 1 of a path that I've opened, but I haven't completed yet. And what's nice about this is you can just go in and you can share the badge. So if you want to share it to LinkedIn or to Facebook, you can do that there. And that's great, especially for people if, you know, they want to go down the route of public speaking in a professional capacity, or they do a lot of it at work. It's a great endorsement as well to have that on your LinkedIn profile. And when you come down here, you will see that there's the opportunity to see certificates. So this will show you your level 1, your level 2 to 5 certificates. So this is saying to me here, my team collaboration, these are all my certs for team collaboration. If you completed certificates before the website changed in November, they won't be here, unfortunately. Anything you see here is just what you've achieved since October, November, when the new system came on board. Okay. And one other thing here is feedback, which is a nice addition in that you can give member feedback. So you can give feedback to another member in your club. So like that, you know, Linda gives her icebreaker and you're a member in Linda's club. You weren't her evaluator, and maybe you didn't get a chance to speak to her after the meeting, but you can send her an feedback here. So give feedback, and again, you select the club, you select the member, and you could give her maybe a courageous one and say, you know, you were courageous, you gave your icebreaker, I know you were nervous, but very well done, you did a good job. Maybe somebody organised a contest, you could give them the collaborative badge. It's just giving somebody a virtual pat on the back, essentially, is what you're doing here. But it is a nice feeling to receive these badges, because sometimes, you know, when somebody's a grammarian, the only feedback they might get is from the general evaluator. But maybe it would be nice for you to give the grammarian in your club a little bit of kudos for being inspiring, or being, maybe they needed to be adaptable because the meeting didn't go as planned, etc., and they needed to adapt how they carried out their role. So again, it's just something nice that you can do for a member. Doesn't need to be done. It doesn't have any implications if you do it or if you don't do it, but it's just there. And I suppose it's building on the Toastmasters ethos of providing feedback and encouragement to members to help them grow. Okay. So I'm going to have a quick look here at the questions, and then I want to wrap up. Okay. Wonderful idea. Okay. We're coming close to the end of the Toastmasters year. And obviously for some of you, you're newly joined, so you're finding your feet and you're figuring all this out. You're figuring out about being a Toastmaster, you're figuring out about pathways, etc. For those of us who have been members for a while, we need to start maybe looking at how we want to finish off our year. And for those that are on the committee, and particularly the VP, you're probably looking at your Distinguished Club Programme points, and you need to see, maybe you need another level 1 to get that point. So what you need to do is you need to be looking at where you're at and what you need to achieve to meet your target or to go past your target. So if you're a member and you have one project left to do, which might be a level 1 project for argument's sake, and you haven't done maybe the second speech in the evaluation and feedback, or you haven't done an evaluation. It's like what I was saying earlier to Linda. Go to your VP and say, I want you to schedule me at the next meeting for an evaluation, or I want you to schedule me at the next meeting for a speech, and be proactive about it, because it's beneficial to you and it will be beneficial to the club. And I would say to any VPs out there, or indeed to anybody else on the committee, because it all doesn't just fall on the VP. If you see a member that hasn't spoken in a while, or that is close to achieving a level or indeed a path, encourage them to speak. Because again, I think, and I've seen members fall into 2 camps. You'll either have members that will put their hand up and say yes to everything, and sometimes overburden themselves and then get too bogged down by trying to do everything at every meeting, or you will get the people that sit there and they don't want to put themselves forward, and then they might come back and say, oh, I didn't get an opportunity to speak. And that happens as well. So you need to be able to pinpoint people and just encourage them. And I think, Sue, you're saying, how will we know where they are if they're not on the committee? I suppose, if you heard somebody speak and you know that they're on level, that they've done 2 speeches in level 3, you could just even talk to them. I find the coffee break, if there's a coffee break, is great. Sue, where are you at? How many more speeches do you have to do to complete level 3? Why don't you put yourself forward at the next meeting? You're well able to do it, and don't be nervous. Or, because sometimes I think people might say, oh, I don't know what to write about. And there's a blank, and then weeks become months, etc., and things roll on. So just be proactive in getting people to speak. And for VPEs as well, I want to say, make sure that everybody that has spoken and has finished a level has put their level through on the website. It is notorious at this time of year when it gets to May and June. People are saying, oh, I thought we were a distinguished club. I thought we received all the points necessary. And you might have done, but some speeches weren't put through or approved. So please check your base camp to make sure that nobody has put something through that you haven't approved. And second of all, just do a poll of your members and just say, have you put through everything that you've done this year? Just a little bit of housekeeping to tidy up, to make sure that when the 1st of July comes, and that first week in July when the dashboard updates, that your club is represented as true as it was meant to be represented. That it isn't showing as 4 points when really you have 6 points, but due to an admin situation, you didn't put through everything that you were supposed to put through. So I suppose my call to action to everybody is, look at where you're at, be you a member or be you on the committee, and see what you need to do to get that final push. And also, there's nothing wrong with having a meeting towards the end of the year that is almost like a speechathon, where you can have 5-6 speeches in a meeting. They're great at the end of the year. I like those kind of speeches at the end of the year, where people get a chance to speak so that they can achieve their goals. And if you're somebody that really needs to get that last speech in, but there isn't a speaking slot in your club, reach out to other clubs. Because at this time of year, sometimes there are speaking slots available, because with summer holidays and bright evenings and children off school, etc., people are otherwise engaged. So reach out to those other clubs and ask for chances to speak. When a lot of us are online now, there's huge opportunities. So again, that was a very quick whistle-stop tour. I hope I've answered the questions that you have asked me. I'm going to put my apologies. I thought I had sent with the core competencies, I had never pressed return. I'm going to put my email in here, and please feel free to reach out to me with any queries you may have. And if I can't answer them, I'll put it to the team and one of us will get the answer. And if all that fails, we can contact TI. I'm not sure how many of you are going to Solihull to the District 71 conference. I will be there along with Elizabeth and many others, I think, here as well. But Elizabeth and myself are going to set up a Pathways desk at the conference, probably near the registration table. And we will be there at registration, and we will be there at breaks, etc. So if you are coming, bring your laptop, bring your questions, and we can troubleshoot it there and then at the conference. And it's a great way to meet people in person. And my final thought is, there's no question too big, there's no question too small, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. Sometimes people don't ask questions because they think, oh, I should know this. And then what happens is they never ask the question, they never get an answer, and they become disengaged. And what we want is maximum engagement with Pathways, not anybody to feel disengaged. So please reach out. And I think I'll leave it there, Mairead, because once I start talking, I can keep going.
Madam PQD Mairead had to leave, so she's
Oh,
asked
apologies.
so she's asked me to do the vote of thanks.
No problem.
Well, I think you'll all agree this has been an absolutely amazing session. Could we all unmute and give Patricia a round of applause?
Oh, absolutely.
Patricia, I think what you've done so fantastically well is to make Pathways. First of all, you shared your enthusiasm, which I share with you on Pathways, but you answered questions in a fulsome way. You listened very carefully. Nothing was too small or too large, and I think you just made it so agreeable. What I would say to everyone, of course, Patricia said it herself. She's always available to help. I'm in her team, myself and Mary. So if you've got any questions, please. And I want to really press this because I was preaching this last year when I was district director. This is the time of the year when we need every single DCP goal we can get. So we need everyone to go in to do their speeches, close it off in Pathways so that your clubs can meet the goals. Clubs get goals, areas get goals, divisions get goals, and districts get goals. And that's how we get a distinguished district. So a deep plea from the bottom of our heart to all of you. And as I said, if you've got any questions at all, just email Patricia, email myself, and we're really there to help. Great session, Patricia. One last round of applause, and we let you all go. And if you love this,
Sorry, I said to Bridget I would get back to her question. I didn't in the presentation, but Bridget, I will email you after this with your question because I think it's more specific to your club anyway. So I'll do that.
And we'll also send out the recording. People have been asking for the recording. You'll get a copy of the recording so that you can watch this again. Okay. And if you want more of Pathways, just tell us and you can have a lot more of Pathways.